Welcome to Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday, Episode 54. The Greatest Treasure a Man Can Know, by Jason King. A dry wind tousled what was left of Gaius's wispy white hair. He knew he should be afraid, but a warm comfort suffused his chest. The scene, though first beheld by Gaius at present, was all too familiar. It had been described to him decades ago by an old hermit with the gift of foresight. "Your end shall come as you stand alone against a sea of soldiers, fighting for the greatest treasure a man can know." Gaius had been a young man, at his prime, when the seer's words fell on his ears. He was deaf to the proclamation at first, believing, like most young warriors, that he would somehow escape the specter that was death. But after he was a little more seasoned, he came to like the idea of exiting mortality in a blaze of glory. It had played out in his fantasies and dreams 1,000 times, and in 1,000 ways. And the treasure had taken the shape of riches, artifacts of power, honors, and power, until he'd forgotten the description of his destiny. And the treasure had taken the shape of riches, artifacts of power, and honors, until he'd forgotten the description of his destiny. Well, almost forgotten. It had always lurked in the dark places of Gaius's mind. "Commander Gaius," an armored man called, "the most holy emperor demands you hand over his chosen bride. If you continue to defy his will, we are to see to it that you are executed in a most deplorable state of ignominy." Gaius glanced over his shoulder to his modest house. He'd built that house with his own hands. A sad smile flashed across his face as he remembered Shayla pointing out where he'd failed to make the floor level. How he'd wish she were with him now. "I am," her soft voice whispered on the wind. "Gaius!" the armored man shouted. "Why do you reject His Holiness's most gracious bestowal of honor?" "Because she is only a child of 10 winters," Gaius called back. "Only a man of twisted lust would touch her." "You blaspheme our God and King." "He is no God, and he is king save only by treachery and blood." The armored man drew his sword and stepped forward, followed by 24 of his like. Gaius dropped his cane, stood straight, and fell into his favored fighting form, Roots of the Mountain. As the armored captain drew near, Gaius closed his eyes and drew on his joining, the conduit for his connection to the energy of the earth. The familiar sensation of fire flowing into every part of his frame was like the welcome kiss of an old friend. The armored captain's sword fell, but broke in 2 across his upheld wrist. Gaius smiled at the captain's widened eyes, and then punched through his breastplate like it were made of paper. 2 more soldiers flanked Gaius, and he whirled, a white aura trailing his sharp movements as he slammed his open palm into the headplate of the soldier on his right, caving in the slitted faceplate along with the man's skull. A snap kick to his left followed, crumpling the soldier's greave and shattering the man's tibia. This continued, waves of soldiers attacking Gaius, sometimes in small groups and sometimes in dozens, and Gaius knew he couldn't fight forever. The bulk of the Emperor's army still remained several thousand strong. But Gaius wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting for the greatest treasure a man can know, Asuka, his granddaughter. She should be miles into the foothills by now, he thought, as one of the soldiers skewered his right shoulder with a pike. The metal dissolved when it came in contact with his blood, but it succeeded in leaving a hole behind that rendered Gaius's arm useless. A sword crashed down on his back, tearing open the flesh and cutting into his spine. Still, even then, Gaius felt no fear, just a steady calm. "I am with you," the voice whispered again on the wind. "I know," Gaius said aloud, right before a soldier's comma opened his throat. Asuka's heart-shaped face flashed before his mind, and Gaius smiled at her brown eyes, raven hair, and one dimple visible only when she grinned. The greatest treasure a man can know. And Gaius did know. Thank you for listening. We want your story. Please submit it at immortal-works.com.